Now, our own police have put forward a request to change the law so that they can stop having to police social media posts, because people are getting to the point where it's like, why can't we say these things? Why can I? No, it's literally classified as a crime, which I do anyway because I don't really care. It's crime for me to sit there and say, England for the English. We are a white nation. We should remain an ethnically white nation. That is considered, not even joking, an extremist terrorist idea under our government system at this point in time.
I'm curious, how do they feel if you were to make those same statements about Israel? Are those generally allowed? So is Israel for the Israelis allowed?
Oy vey, listen. Oy vey. Well, you'd have to ask Keir Steinmer. I mean, the man's already said that he has Israeli heritage. They just had a massive march literally yesterday in central London. It was the stand up against anti-Semitism. I may have stole a poster from there because I thought it was funny. But they had a march about that. So if you were to tell them, it would be like, if you say to them, well, I think that your country should be allowed to not be the ethnic people of there, which they would classify as the Jews, they would say, oh, you hate all Jews, you want to genocide Jews. You say that against our nation, it goes, well, it's fine. It's fine. You colonize the world. So why can you not accept that swarms of Pakistanis or Indians come over? I say, too bad. We don't want them here. We're not going to have them here. If Israel is only allowed to be for the Jews, we're only allowed to be for the ethnic white Brits. Simple as.
Yeah. You're breaking some people's brains, letting them know about the Israeli Starmer connection here. Some of my friends were not aware.
Yeah, so Keir Starmer, he's not Israeli himself. Now, he says that his family has Israeli heritage, but his wife is a Jew. His kids are all Jews. They practice Sabbath. So he is a practicing Jew by conversion, and he's already admitted before, it was 2020, I believe, at the Labour leadership elections, where he was saying to a Zionist panel that he doesn't classify himself as a Zionist, but he supports Israel and says that they have a right to exist. So he's a Zionist. And then he was basically said that he has some family that live in Israel, so it is close to them. So he's completely compromised, like the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's kind of, I don't know. I guess until recently, has he run on that at all? I hadn't really heard much of it.
No,
He hasn't kind of pushed it too hard, right? You guys are a little bit different than us, to where it seems like there seems to be in the American left, there's this kind of institutionalized governmental left wing that is very pro-Israel. And then there's kind of this natural ground up, all the communists and the transgenders and all the people who are mentally ill, and they all love the Palestinian side. And so does that kind of exist within England? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, so it kind of does. So, I mean, Labour and Conservative, they're both very pro-Israel. Even things like Nigel Farage's Reform is very pro-Israel. I mean, Richard Tice was literally leading the protest yesterday about the fight back against anti-Semitism, or whatever crap he wants to come up with. But no, so we have a thing called the Labour Friends of Israel. You've got the Conservative Friends of Israel. Even things like, so we don't have a free speech amendment in the UK, but we have a thing called the Free Speech Union that was created by a guy called Toby Young. Toby Young also happens to be one of the leading founders of British Friends of Israel. So we do have that. Even Yvette Cooper, who works in Keir Starmer's cabinet, she's funded £250,000 by Israel. So no, it does exist. I think the ones that are rebelling against it are actually a lot of the Islamic independent candidates that we have. And people like Jeremy Corbyn, who are rebelling against it, and they believe, I think that comes from their tolerance and love of humanity, which is good, because I believe in humanity, but it's not necessarily the fact that ethno-religion, ethno-state, ethno-beliefs, cultural kind of ties together, it's going to lead to corruption.
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting. Yeah, it's like it's kind of a ploy to where the only way you can oppose, the entity is to all of a sudden become some type of Islamist, or, it's kind of a false dichotomy that makes it very difficult for a genuine, especially because it like obviously for you guys, it's a little bit easier because you have a specific people group attributed to your home. It's a little bit more complicated depending on where you live here in America. So I think it's easier to spot for you guys, which is, I think, kind of an advantage you have. Although I think actually talking about it is more difficult.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I think as well, especially considering they keep going on about, we're Judeo-Christians and all of this crap. I hate the word Judeo-Christian. It's like calling yourself a Satanist Christian. It doesn't make any sense. But they're like, yeah, we're Judeo-Christians. We're built on Judeo-Christian values. I think most British people now are just like, especially with like we continue to fly surveillance drones over Gaza. We continue to supply arms to Gaza. Not Gaza, sorry, to Israel. Gaza's been one of the hot topic things that I've been watching. Even with us being one of the leading founders to go, well, we're going to recognize Palestine as a state. I actually called this out on my show a few months ago. I went, recognizing Palestine as a state is going to do nothing more than hurry up Israel's attack onto it. And I mean, that was proven to be right. They increased the bombing. They've been cutting up Gaza to try and expel all the Palestinians out by the south. So, yeah, the UK is, we're waking up to it, but not the same way where we're going. Maybe it's not just the fact they're a country. Maybe it's the fact that they have some form of ethnic divide that's making them feel this way with scripture that says something about Goyim. But I'm not saying any of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm with the kind of the British history with Israel, obviously. I'm curious. It seems to me that when I hear a lot of people talk, that they generally just seem to say, I'm just not interested. It's something on the other side of the world. It has nothing to do with us. I don't want to have to pick a side. When I see British people saying this is what they seem to be saying, it doesn't seem that you guys have the same contingent of, non-denominational Baptist kind of dispensationalists that the United States have. So there seems to not quite be the same religious fervor there that we have here. And so I'm curious, does it seem to mostly just come from a kind of political lens and a little bit less from that religious lens?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of British people want to avoid it because they get the Balfour Declaration shoved at us quite a lot. Now, actually, I'm going to give you guys a bit of a history lesson here. The Balfour Declaration is not where Israel began, especially not in the UK. So, I mean, we can go back through like Moses Montefiore buying up land in the Ottoman Empire in 1830. We can go back to the Rothschilds buying up land and making Jewish villages outside of Jerusalem in the 1880s. But if we actually look at it like this, we always go, well, the Balfour Declaration in 1917, that was implemented by a guy called David Lloyd George. That was our prime minister at the time. He overtook from a prime minister that was kicked out in December the year before that. But if you actually look at David Lloyd George, 10 years before going into politics, 10 years before the Balfour Declaration was signed, he was working as a lawyer. Specifically, he was working as a lawyer for the Zionist community within the UK to help them with land acquisition in the Ottoman Empire. So when people go, well, it's Britain's fault because of the Balfour Declaration, we were dragged into that. We were forced into that by a man that was already corrupted by the Zionist entity. And even if you go throughout the entire wars going up all the way until 1948, they bombed the hotel, the David Hotel, in I think it was Jerusalem. They bombed that, killed off British infantry. The three militias that made up the IDF, they consistently targeted British railways, British infrastructure, British army soldiers, all of this. So I think it's a lot more British people don't want to get involved with it because they're worried about, oh, they're going to say it's our fault. I wouldn't even say it's our fault. I'd say we were having to deal with a very tough situation that was kind of shoved on us because we were forced to go into the Ottoman Empire with France and take over that region of land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I was just kind of curious because you guys have a little bit, it's weird because you have more of a historical, historical involvement, but then obviously, my country has a lot more current involvement and has this weird religious fervor.